What the? What's poppin' is Shaman, and yeah, my last video on Ninja Kamui probably isn't aging so well right now. Which is crazy for how good the first 2 episodes look and how easy the plot should have been. It just should have been John Wick anime. Like, how do you mess up a revenge plot story? It should have been a slam dunk. And yes, the CGI mechs were a huge problem, but honestly, they were just a nail in the coffin for a show that was just bad in general. And I think the perfect place to start to where the problems kind of lied has to be in the dialogue, the story beats, and the character development. And the perfect example to me to really highlight this has to be in episode 4. Let me play this for you real quick.
Mind if I ask you something? Did your wife know? Did you tell her what you were?
She did, because Mari was also a ninja.
Do ninjas normally have families?
No. The 2 of us broke the code.
What code?
Ninjas must be emotionally detached, even from their allies.
I see. You broke the code and chose your family.
So who is this detective talking to? I'm gonna explain why this doesn't work. See, the detective isn't talking to the other character in the room, they're talking to the audience. And see, this hand-holding type of dialogue is very insulting to the audience, as it makes it feel like that we cannot understand context or social cues, which is one thing if this show was marketed to 5-year-olds, but this is a mature slaughter anime that's literally on Adult Swim. But this and many tropes have just been happening in so many shows recently, and I don't know who's pushing this trend, because directors will keep doing moments like this, but also in key moments where we want more things to be explained and pushed out, they just breeze by it and expect us to believe what's going on in the scene. Here's an example. See, in the same episode, we get a flashback of Joe and his wife and their first time meeting and going on a mission. Now, see, this should be the key moment that gets us more invested into Joe and his wife and the family, and really seeing the toll that it took on Joe and why he loved his wife and their story with each other. And the show decides to say, nah, we're not gonna give you any of that. Instead, we never see one romantic hint that Joe even likes this woman until the very end when they mess up and botch the mission and his wife tries to uninstall herself. And Joe just says this to her.
From the moment I met you, I had already broken the code.
And then they bang, letting you know they have never hinted that they like each other, said they love each other, never heard Joe have an inner monologue that said that he might like this person. This just happened. And we're just supposed to believe that these people are in love. Like, what? You don't think you want to spend a little more time on that to explain it to us a little better? No, they don't want to show that to us at all. So we just have to be, as fans, to spend more disbelief that these guys are just totally in love and that we should be sad for them, even though they don't show us that she has helped him grow as a person, that Joe really is in love with her, or anything else. And this is how they're treating their main 3 characters. There is no growth with them through the show. There's nothing interesting in the show. I am not invested in these characters, and I couldn't tell you much about these characters. So a big major thing is, if you can't even juggle your main 3, why would you add in a whole nother group of cyborg ninjas that you cannot flesh out at all? Pretty much just giving us tropes of characters that's just cringy to watch. You got this one dude who's just an evil nerd. You got this one character who's just the black guy. And then you got this creepy little gremlin over here that says stuff like,
what about the bush down by your big dick?
Like, nah, bro, come on. You gotta be kidding me. This show can't be real at this moment. Am I watching the same Ninja Kamui from the first 2 episodes? Like, I understand they were probably trying to do like, oh, he's creepy and really perverted like Hisoka, but it doesn't work and it just comes off cringy because Hisoka himself is a more depth character who has more layers to him, his own interests, his own passion and hobbies. This character is just gross. And it's like the show wants us to be invested in these characters and story elements, but they gave us nothing to be invested in. Like, there's a lot of mystery and twists and turns that we see through the show, but because none of them got built up or they just come so out of left field, they don't hit at all. Like, we find out that the red-haired girl that works with a detective was actually a secret ninja the whole time and actually was trying to help Joe and knew his wife and all this. Like in one episode, we found out the detective's partner, the red-haired girl, is actually a secret ninja. And this is never hinted to or alluded to previously, it just comes up randomly. But hey, we're here now, and I guess they just want us to roll with this too. But the thing is that they try to make it seem all like an emotional moment, and that she was a ninja that actually knew Joe and his wife, and that she was actually trying to protect them. But she fails at that mission, as we can see from the first episode. And the show throws this crazy twist right when we think she's about to die. Spoilers, she doesn't. She actually dies 2 episodes later, unrelated and randomly. So there's no emotional attachment at all. It's like if you were gonna kill her off, why didn't you just kill her off at the aborted part? I don't know. And this lack of motivation and emotional weight really just resonates through the whole show. They even try to have their own Kakashi versus Obito moment with Joe and his friend. You know, that iconic anime fight moment that was built up through hundreds of episodes. You know, with 2 beloved and interesting in-depth characters that really have their own backstories finally colliding. Yeah, they did that with Joe and his friend, who I have no idea who neither one of these guys really are. And it sucks because this is the type of animation that we saw in the first 2 episodes that looked so amazing, but because we're not invested and there was no build up to this climax, we just don't care.
I don't care.
So when I look at this IP and compare it to other ones that it kind of references, like John Wick, there is a whole cast of characters that I know and enjoy from John Wick, even Common. And I heard another argument that some people made, say that this show probably just tried to do too much at once with cyborgs and ninjas and sci-fi and all this. Well, let me tell you about another IP that has cyborg, ninjas, sci-fi, and a whole bunch of other elements and worked out just fine.
It's time for Jack to let her rip.
Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is 10 years old and people still love this IP. It does all the same aesthetic that this Ninja Kamui tried to do, but better, because we love the characters, we're invested in them, and we got Jetstream Sam. Like, come on. Compare Jetstream Sam to this goblin. Which is you really enjoying more? But the reason I'm highlighting Revengeance is because it feels like what Ninja Kamui really wanted to be and what it could have been if it actually got more love and care to the story. See, in Revengeance, even though it has a vast range of characters, all of them are memorable and some more than others. And that's kind of the thing that Ninja Kamui needed to do is, hey, even though you have this vast range of characters, at least give us a few that we can look at and be like, oh, I like them, or they're interested. Sam has such limited screen time, but for every moment that he's in, you can tell what kind of person that he is. And that's why he's such a fan favorite, because he's enjoyable to the audience, but also for the protagonist, he is an obstacle that Raiden is going to have to overcome by the end. And instead of being an iconic franchise like this, it really just reminds me of Yosuke, where it's like you're just trying to put mechs in and do too much at this point. Which brings me to my last point.
Big CGI fight coming up.
So now let's talk about the big CGI elephant in the room. That being the horrible mech CGI that I had to watch through the rest of this show. Like, come on, the one saving grace that this show had was its animation. And then you said, no, we're gonna go to CG mechs instead. And hey, I'm not a CGI hater. I mean, you can look at me now. I'm literally CG. But the thing that Ninja Kamui and other shows keep doing is using CGI as a cost-saving measure and a crutch, instead of using it to enhance the experience. Like, you could tell this is something that they wanted to do hand-drawn, but they were like, hey, this will save us more money. Because if you really wanted to do this CG, you would have planned ahead for that and made the figures look a little more better and blend in. But you can tell that the CGI is really there just to be a cost-saving measure and not an expression of the art. Because there's many other animes that use CGI now that you don't even notice, or that just looks good and people have no thoughts on, such as Attack on Titan or Premiere. They did it so good with their nice cell shading and made sure that it matched the aesthetic of their show. This show, it is just an eyesore to look at the whole time. So when people say that the CGI ruined it, they're right, because you took away the one thing that this show still had going for it, because the characters are horribly developed, the story is completely boring, and I'm not invested. So for at least the few people that were still holding on by the end, wanting to see some cool action hand-drawn animation, you took that away from them too. So honestly, Ninja Ninja Kamui will be going down in history as one of the craziest and biggest fall off in anime history. At least it gave this animator a resume, but honestly, at what cost?